Hi, today we'll be talking about smart education and a smart classroom. What is smart education slash smart classroom? Smart education involves the use of a classroom that has technology within an enclosed environment. The goal of these classrooms is to increase effectiveness of learning and teaching. As technology evolves and gets better, it is in the best interest of the institutions to take advantage of these advances. By using the various components of smart education, software, and hardware, smart learning occurs.
So some of the features of a smart classroom are going to be the hardware and the software. The hardware refers to the devices that are either infrastructure or mobile, is a two-way to think of those. So these devices are things like computers, laptops, things like that, Chromebooks even. So the infrastructure is stuff that is going to be found stationary in the classroom, stationary technology. So maybe that's the professor's computer that is always in the classroom. And then mobile hardware is stuff that can be taken anywhere by the students within the classroom. So maybe a laptop, maybe a Chromebook, something like that, where they can go throughout the classroom and use it. Software is what is being used by students and professors to learn. So something like Zoom or the Microsoft Office suite or the Adobe Creative Suite is all things that can be counted as software. And the smart learning experience is really enhanced by the combination of both hardware and software. They're both very important components into it.
So there are components of smartness to a classroom. There are 6 unique parts that help determine the smartness of a classroom. They include adaptation, sensing, inferring, self-learning, anticipation, self-organization. Essentially, these are the 6 categories of smartness.
So the first component of smartness that we're going to talk about is adaptation, which is the ability of a teacher to change environmental conditions and components, or even other features that'll help students by increasing the safety of a classroom. It'll help control the class better, and it'll help just improve the learning experience all around. An example of this is if a student had a disability, like something like ADHD or something like anything else that makes it harder for them to read and write. It would be best for them to use text to speech or voice to text, and that'll help improve their smart learning experience. The second component is sensing, which is the ability to automatically identify, recognize, understand, or become aware of events that can affect the functions of smart learning. So an example of this is using sensors or like a webcam to detect things such as closed eye or detect head nodding in a student. And that can tell you maybe they're bored, maybe they're not paying attention. And with this, you can react to it and make the learning experience better.
The next component is inferring, which is also known as logical reasoning. It is the ability for instructors to make conclusions based on data collected from the students through things such as assessments. Example, the student analytics services at Bradley University. Organization is the ability for institutions to make changes to their internal structures without the use of a third party. An example of this is having a means to deal with servers and how to properly save data if power were to be lost.
So the next component is going to be self-learning, which is the ability to automatically obtain or formulate new data or modify existing data, like profiles and experiences, to improve on smart learning's effectiveness. So an example of this is how students can work in large group projects without necessarily needing direct lectures, which allows students to learn via social methods instead of just reading a textbook or watching a lecture. And then we have anticipation, which is the ability to perceive what will happen next and have a proper plan and be able to react to it. So an example of this is having a system of safety for students to use that anticipates, recognizes situations, and sends them according notifications to help improve the student's overall learning experience.
Software. As mentioned before, software is a crucial component in smart learning and education. Depending on the method of teaching, there are various softwares that can be used. For examples, methods might include presentations, animations, video, and augmented and virtual reality. Here are some examples. So for presentations, you could use Microsoft Office, use things like PowerPoint, or if you had like a document they wanted to show, you could pull up Microsoft Word and show the document that way. For animations, you could use Microsoft Office as well. And there's some other animation tools like as Animwork, Video, and Mixi. For video, you can use screen recording software. So if a teacher wanted to show how to use a certain software, for example, he could easily record his screen and have that available resource for students. Augmented and virtual reality. Sometimes it's really hard to grasp ideas without seeing a structure or an object. So as you can see in the right hand corner, you can see like a picture of a brain, and it allows students to interact with their environment.
And then we have some types of hardware. Depending on the type of teaching, various types of hardware can be used. So for presentations, you're going to use stuff like desktops, laptops, or mobile devices, or smart boards, or TVs, or document cameras, and projectors. And these are all fairly standard in a teacher's room. For video, you're going to be using stuff like mobile camera, camcorders, and microphones. And then for augmented or virtual reality, these things are going to require something like a VR headset, an AR workstation, or calibrated infrared cameras. And all these are varying levels of teachers would have experience with them or really feasibility to even use. We're going to see stuff like desktop laptops way more than we're going to see VR headsets in smart teaching rooms right now.
Standards. For a classroom to be smart and effective, it should be able to supply the tools that are able to adapt to best help the students of the environment. With that, there are several hardware/software that are standard within most classrooms in the United States. For hardware, a projector, computer with internet access, a sound system, and collaborative seating to encourage group work. For software, things such as Microsoft Office are really helpful, and obviously Chrome or Safari or any other internet browser is useful for completing any other schoolwork.
So some of the benefits of smart learning and smart classrooms include better student-teacher interactions. This smart learning really allows for students and teachers to have more one-on-one time. Students and teachers can really see how a student is doing at all times. You don't have to wait around until they submit a project or submit a paper. You can be more proactive with how they teach and make sure the student understands everything that's going on. And on the same note, student engagement is way better than it can be in traditional schools. If students can utilize stuff like gamification, they're much more likely to enjoy their lessons and to work really hard on them and to even understand stuff better. Information can be presented in a much better manner. Like I said before, with gamification, students tend to learn much better. And information can also be presented much more effectively to each single student. If a certain student learns really well by listening to lectures, maybe that's what they want to do. But if a student learns better by interacting with a video or using VR or AR, then they can also go and do that. So smart classrooms are a really great way to tailor the needs to each student specifically. And then lastly, it can increase the interest in a particular subject. When a student has more resources to learn about a subject, they can get much deeper into it. So if a student really hated math or science before coming into a class, smart learning gives them a chance to really start to love the subject instead. Maybe by using video games or other methods, a student can connect with the material much more than they could have in a traditional classroom where they're required to just do the same thing as everyone else.
Design development trends. There are various trends when it comes to smart classrooms and universities. They include having sensors throughout the classroom. So like I mentioned before, you'd have sensors that can detect head nodding or eyes being closed or fidgeting. So this really helps teachers and instructors to monitor their class and see the state of students, state that their students are in. So if they need to take a break or change their pace of teaching, they can easily do so. Uh, Distributed system architecture, so just having architecture that allows the technology to be used in the classroom effectively. Interfaces, so oftentimes it's hard to control a lot of devices if they're not all connected to one single device. For example, like you would have a single computer that could control all the devices in the classroom, and having an interface would allow you to uh, have easier access to the control of those devices. Uh, IoT, which stands for Internet of Things, um, going along the lines of the interface, connecting these devices to a network is the way that um, these devices are controlled. Potential applications and opportunities. Using, as we mentioned before, using the Internet of Things is one potential application. It allows all the devices to connect via internet. It allows for even smarter integration between technology. Ambient intelligence technology, like I said before, it's used to like keep track of classroom, students, heads nodding, etc. For another application is virtual and augmented laboratories. So if students couldn't necessarily go to a lab because they had either like a medical condition or they just couldn't make it physically to the lab, then they would be able to access it via VR or AR. Interactive content. So Khan Academy is a great example of interactive content. Sometimes students don't necessarily learn much from in-person lectures, but having an interactive website such as Khan Academy really helps the student learning process. Uh, my personal opinions, I believe it's important as a society to move to make smart classrooms standard throughout the schools in the United States and the world. Personally, I've been exposed to smart classrooms since fourth grade. I can attest that it has significantly improved my learning experience. For example, I had one of my teachers use a computer-aided design to help show an example of a design part for one of my engineering classes. And sometimes it's really hard to visualize like an object without showing it on a computer in 3D space. And just having technology overall really enhances the learning experience.